Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to yet again another fantastic indie creator interview. It is your Caped Crusader Cody, and we are keeping it geekly with our two new friends, Jaron Martin and William Macy III. We're here to break down The Reaper's Touch and everything in between. Welcome to the stream, guys. How are you two doing?
Hey, good morning. How are you guys?
Good morning. Good morning, Vietnam.
Exactly.
Here bright and early in Ohio, I am up with the birds, drinking water, staying hydrated, ready to learn about this interesting tale about our 17-year-old friend Devon and a supernatural assassination. This sounds crazy, but before we dive into it, let's dive into who you guys are and, you know, how you came into creating comics.
Well, for me, I'm a little long in the tooth in it. So I've been working on comic books, I guess you could say, since I was 12. So when I was 12, me and my friends, we built and had our own comic company. As I got older, I stuck with it. So my official foray might have been, and I'm going to date myself, was probably like 93, 94. In the area of Philadelphia, probably like 3 or 4 companies, one named Morpheus. That's where I went in. I did character design, did some computer work, did some outlining and breakdowns. Then there was another indie comic that I started, and I got picked to do a couple things for that. I've done storyboards for independent movies, and you know, eventually it just led me to constantly always just doing things on my own. So like me, myself, I've been in and out of creating comics and comic art literally probably for about 35 years.
Let's go, man. That is awesome. And I really want to kind of jump into some of that too, because I'm sure your experiences differ from, you know, back in the early 90s to right now. But before we do that, Jaron, what about you? What about your history?
Okay, so for me, it's I've been a long time lover of comic books since as far back as, and honestly, as I can remember. And I've always enjoyed like the creative piece around the writing. So a few years ago, I came up with the idea for The Reaper's Touch. And this is actually my first foray into actually creating a book. So Will is kind of like my Obi-Wan Kenobi in terms of all things comics. but from a writing perspective, I've always been a writer. I've done writing work for a few smaller television production shows to help write with pilots. To submit for TV shows, a few YouTube things, done a slight bit of acting, but I've really been involved on the writing side for a very, very long time. And a few years ago, like I said, I've had this idea in my head now for goodness about 10 plus years. And I decided to give it a go a few years ago, and that's kind of when the journey started. And I kind of started looking for artists and someone who was willing to jump on this journey with me. And fortunately, I was able to find Will.
That is so awesome. We have Christina Hill over on Facebook saying, "Hey, sup, Will? Will is a beast." Will, I mean, having been in the industry for so long, what was your experience like, you know, creating comics in the first part, of your journey compared to now? I mean, there's been so many changes with, you know, the digital medium and everything across the boards, you know, so how has that been for you?
I mean, realistically, I'm like, because I still do things the old-fashioned way. Like, our book is still created on pencil. Like, it's pencil to paper, thumbnails to paper, then we go through the digital process. The digital process definitely streamlines a lot of stuff because our team is spread out pretty much all around the globe right now. So from Philadelphia to Georgia to Brazil to Mexico, you know, we're all over the place. And that's strictly through to technology alone.
Hey, hold on 1 second, guys. Not to interrupt. Sorry, somehow my camera just messed up. Let me get this fixed. There we go. I think I might have fixed it. Okay, yeah, the private chat, for whatever reason, because I have everything set on a display capture with my Windows. So the private chat, I was copy and pasting The Reaper's Touch because I was going to drop that in. And right now, I'll just name drop it right now. Check it out right here, guys. You can get a digital PDF and the physical, along as, you know, a couple posters and some shirts too. Check out that website. But as soon as I moved the private chat, it like offset our camera and it like moved everything to the side. So I wanted to get that fixed before you could Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you talking, but go ahead. Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, so as far as the journey goes, like anything else, when you jump into stuff when you're younger, my favorite thing, and this probably is what outlined a lot of what it is that I do now, was there was a convention that came to Philly. And of course, like everybody else, you got your portfolio, you're lined up. I'm just like, oh, I'm getting signed to Marvel today. This is the day that I'm going to be signed to DC. Somebody's going to take me because I'm just that good. And then you get there and it's just like, no, that's terrible. This is, with that. And, your story pacing is a little bit better, but you might want to work on that. So, that shattered your dreams. And for a while, it literally stopped me from going through it. But because I have such a love for the craft itself, I eventually got back into it. And a friend of mine, Jamar McLaurin, who also came along the way, and he helped show me certain things because I would shadow everything like I was drawing a regular picture. And a lot of my critiques would be like, an inker's not going to be able to ink that. There's no halftones when you're creating. So you got to make them solid. And he was like, no, look at everything as a shape. And once that came into play, and then just getting comfortable with who you are and your influences and styles like that, it transformed me. And I'm still constantly always evolving. Like, this book is nice, but the next book, I'm putting more work into it.
I'm kind of just mind blown. I would have never guessed anything about like the halftones and like an inker not being able to properly like ink something. Like, what all goes into that? That seems like such a whole different playing field when creating panels and stuff.
So, like, the whole process of creating comic books in general, it gets dismissed, especially like if you come from an art school background like I do, like it's automatically dismissed. But creating the designs for your page, keeping somebody interested on a 2D frame for 32 pages, 23 pages, 64 pages, you have to design that.
Mm-hmm.
So you go in, my mindset is always, how can I move your eye around each panel? So it's literally boom, 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 whether it's with boxes, whether it's with direction lines, which you may not even realize. So it'll be like a scarf will be on the page, but if the scarf is coming down this way, it'll lead you to the next panel. And that's done deliberately. So a lot of things that you look into your comic books is mostly done specifically to move your eye around that page.
I love just how there's like an added layer to it. It's like a whole psychological layer to it that you're not even really realizing. It's like you think you're reading the comic, but the comic's reading you.
Right.
So Jaron, this was your first venture, and Christina said hi to you as well. Your first venture into creating comics. How was it diving into a first issue as opposed to maybe like a one shot or maybe a short story?
Well, so for me, it was this is honestly like probably the most scariest thing I've ever done, because you're putting something out there for the world to see, right? Mm-hmm. And whether it's good or bad, they love it, they hate it, they're in between or whatnot. And I was toying around with the idea, and then a good friend of mine, actually, a guy by the name of Greg Burnham, we were working together, and he's also a creator. And he's like, "Look, man, you have a dope idea. You need to push it." Like he said, don't worry about all the things that could go wrong or anything of that nature. Just go. And then that's what I did. So I wrote the synopsis of what I wanted the first story arc or whatnot to look like. Mm-hmm. And then I started writing issue 1, and then I started the journey of, because I can't draw to save my life. I'm sorry. If you all were waiting on me to draw a book, good luck. We never sell a copy. So I started reaching out to a lot of people on Facebook, a lot of artists on Facebook and Instagram, and I was just never able to find the right fit. Some of them are too expensive because a lot of people don't understand that they're, the cost behind character design, going back and forth on the pages, the cover and things of that nature. That costs money. You want to make sure the artists are well paid. Mm-hmm. And I almost gave up. I'm not gonna lie, I almost gave up. And then something told me, just try one more time. And I found Will on Instagram. I saw his work, and I was like, "Oh God, please just let him respond, or something." And we started talking back and forth, and he did a few character designs for me initially, and I said, okay, so why don't we just partner up, right? Let's just do this thing together.
Let's just do this.
Yeah, let's just do this. He initially told me no. So,
Dang, Will.
I had to go back and say, I said, oh God, please let him change his mind, right? and then so we started to build like a relationship. Like, this is my brother. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're not just business partners. This is my brother. And he said, you know what? Through everything that I've been through in the past, let's go ahead and partner up. Let's do this. And that was because I think he saw the passion that I had for the book. This wasn't just a money grab. Like, this is something that we love,
mm-hmm.
right? This is something that we have a passion to do. And even from the writing perspective, right? I wanted to hit it from a perspective of, right? there have been movies, television shows, other comic books around the Grim Reaper, right? We've all heard tons of different stories. The differentiator between those and ours is the direction that I chose for the actual storyline itself, about the main character, Devon Midnight. And we kind of, as the story goes along and as we get further along within the issues, you'll see what I'm alluding to. But we're kind of shattering what people think, death is, right? We're gonna take that storyline, what people thought it was, and we're creating something brand new, something where there are some historical references and that you can look to. And the great thing about writing is I get to create some of this stuff from scratch, right?
Yeah.
So as crazy as some of it may seem, and people will have asked me from time to time, well, where did you get this from? Or where are you referencing that? I'm like, well, my mind, my own creative process. So it's been in all honesty, it's been a thrill so far. Just get to writing in, and then like Will was saying with the art, it's the same with the writing, right? So you can have crazy good art, but if the writing isn't good, you may catch somebody for an issue or two, but they won't be they won't stay with you long term. Mm-hmm. So that's something I look forward to. I want the writing to be that good as to where between the writing, the dialogue, and the art, it makes you go from page to page. I have to see what happens next. I have to see what happens next. And it's not especially the dialogue between the characters. You want to make sure that it takes you and puts you in another place, another space, another realm, but at the same time, we want it to be somewhat realistic, because when I'm writing the book, I'm also thinking about, okay, hopefully we get to a stage as to where it's an animated series or a live action series. Mm-hmm. So we kind of write it with scripting that in mind too, and something that's relatable to everybody, and something where the dialogue actually makes sense. It's not I'm the superhero, I swoop in to save the day, right? There are those little the times in between the action, what's going on in the main characters' lives, right? And in between the action sequences or whatnot. So pulling all that into the storyline itself is cool, and it's like I said, it's just something that I love.
No, that is so awesome. Yeah.
All right, because what I was going to say was, like, also being in this for a while, working with different writers, that's another process that goes into it, because everybody has their own writing form. Everybody's not going to get an Alan Moore. Sometimes you're going to get you're going to get Doug Moore, and it's not going to work. So, but what he said is true. Is like, when he gave me the script, as an artist, the first thing you want to do is you want to stretch yourself beyond what you normally do. And for a lot of us, it can be terrifying, but then a lot of us like to take that challenge on. And because there are so many workings where it's working in a real world, not like a fictional world where like things are so far off into the future, like you could just make it up. But there's sequences where they're in a movie theater. Mm-hmm. Now, modern day comic books now, you might get like headshots all throughout the whole thing. Maybe you might get a body shot, but very seldomly do you see any background. So what I wanted to do specifically was create the live environment, because like you said, our initial goal, our end game goal will be to try and get this to become some type of animation at some point. At least that's where we would like to see it go. Now, if it becomes a physical, regular, traditional movie, that's great too. But I'm all about 2D and animation. That's my wheelhouse and where I live.
That is so cool. Yeah. We have Christina Hill saying cold-blooded Will got ice in his veins. Yeah, I was about to say too, like, dang, Will. So Will, what was it for you that really, changed your mind, that really like showed you like this was a project that you wanted to take on?
What I guess really showed me was, like you said, originally he was like, would you like to do the book? And I was like, no, because I had done enough startup companies. None of them really went anywhere. None of them got past the conceptual stage, let alone like being a book all the way halfway through. And then it's like they pull the plug or whatever. So immediately you disillusion. I like the idea of the story. When I started crafting the characters for the story, I was like, well, if I'm going to go this far into it, then I might as well do it. I'm not going to let somebody else come in and give their take on a character that I'm already developing. So that came into play. And then I started looking at because I also do some freehand sculpting every once in a while. So I started sculpting characters up and I was like, oh, the toys for these will be crazy. So,
he started doing character design. He's like, this is actually pretty fire. I think I'm in.
So, and then a lot of situations here. He got married. I had a baby at the time, so we stopped production on a book. But to keep myself sharp, I had an early version of the script. So I was like, you know what? Let me just continue practicing on storytelling. And then as you go through the book, there are probably like 3 pages that were done 4 years prior to the book actually being completed.
That's awesome, though. That is cool. That is, yeah. And I think it's cool how you guys were working together and then life happened, but you guys came back to complete the issue. So issue 1 was kickstarted. So how was that for you guys? Was that your first campaign? Like, Will, I know you've been in the scene for quite some time. How many campaigns did you end up working on?
None, because when I was working, you didn't have a Kickstarter. So literally, this is my first Kickstarter, and the fact that we had reached our goal and surpassed our goal, it was a blessing. Like, I was like, we did it. So for me, I'm like, that was a feather in my cap. I'm like, yes, that's a win.
What about you, Jaron? What was your thoughts on the first campaign? I hear they can be very stressful too. So, I mean, did you guys run into that at all?
They can. Yeah. So we when we started, it was like, okay, we kind of kicked off pretty well, and then it kind of lulled for a minute, and then we went into the kind of like the home stretch, which is where we surpassed our goal, and with that, it was getting all the tiers together, making sure we had things that people would actually want and would want to go and support. And get in return as a thank you for pledging. So yeah, and it was the Kickstarter that I actually ran. Like I said, I had always backed projects on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. So I was already a fan of the platform. I love the entire experience of it, right? You get to see the behind the scenes stuff, like the pencils, the inks, you get to learn about the creators, and then you support with whatever tier of packages that they have. Then you get all this extra stuff in the mail, and then you get to open it, then you get to see it for the first time, right? Just the whole experience of it. So I knew, as someone who consistently supported artists via the platform, what that meant. But for the first time running one, it was in all honesty, it was a labor of love. There were times when we were like, oh, we're not gonna make it, but we ended up making it, and we were super happy about it. But no, it was just an overall an enjoyable experience.
So what is the Reaper's Touch? I mean, we've talked a lot about like what went into it, how you guys came about creating it, but ultimately we're here to talk about the book itself. So like, what's the concept? What's the premise of it? What type of story can readers expect?
Okay, so the Reaper's Touch, it's a story about a 17-year-old kid by the name of Devon Midnight. He's enjoying the summer prior to his senior year in high school. when he finds out that he is actually the target of a supernatural assassination attempt on his life. Now imagine, like I said, you're a 17-year-old kid, you're riding around with your girlfriend thinking you're having, just a good old day. And then, this creature, this supernatural creature out of nowhere, starts to tear up a movie theater to try and get at you. And then chaos ensues. But in the middle of the chaos, a few other entities show themselves as your allies, and he's thrown immediately into the world of the supernatural as, someone we would say in the first issue, he's kind of somewhat of the victim, so to say, because he has no idea why this is happening. He has no idea why he's being attacked. He has no idea why the people who are helping him are actually helping him. And as we get through the issues, like I was speaking to earlier in terms of the story for the Grim Reaper, right? Devon is actually the son of Death. He's the son of the Grim Reaper. He just doesn't know.
Okay.
And none of his powers have shown themselves. You get to see a glimpse in issue 1. In issue 2, we're going to show you a little bit more, but the storyline around the Grim Reaper or Grim Reapers, hint, we break down in the first storyline of the first arc. So we write our arcs out in 12 issues. So we already know what the first 12 issues are going to look like. And we go into that in terms of, is there one Reaper? Is there more than one Reapers? Why are there more than one Reaper? What is the true history and background of life, death, and creation itself? And exactly what and who is Devon Midnight? You get somewhat of a glimpse of that in the first issue as well. So yeah, it's a really cool storyline where we decided to rewrite history, in a sense, and introduce this character. And he's hands down, when he comes into his powers, he's gonna be one of the strongest beings in all of comics. So yeah, that's basically, without giving too much away. Yeah, that's basically the storyline behind it.
I love it. That sounds just insane. We have Gold RPG saying solid idea concept as well. William, what did that creative process look like for you when you got the script from Jaron and actually getting down to drawing it out and designing it? Like, how did that relationship look like?
Well, the good part about that was it was a situation where we didn't want to use traditional tropes. So the one thing that we did keep, which is like standard through almost all the Reapers, they all do have a hood and a cloak. They all have a scythe. Each scythe is different. Each one performs in a different way. So that was fun. But the other thing is, like, I took it from a whole different stance. So instead of like a skull and all that other stuff that we normally see, each mask or each character that you'll find out that is a death character, they all have a specific symbol that's on their face. And these symbols translate from their Guyanese, from their Ghana symbols. So in particular, one character has a symbol on his face. It says, "Only God can judge me." There'll be a character that has a symbol that looks similar, like a full bullseye on his face, but it's "The Lord gives me trust." So for us, it's like tapping into all old world streams, and that's how I came up with it. Like, most of them have a sash that they wear about themselves, so that's a death cloth. So the same thing, like that. Like the Shroud of Turin, that's what those things are for, just to ease you further into the passing. When you go through the first book, there's a sequence where you'll see a baby Devon in the bed, and you'll see characters around the universe, because as surely something lives, something has to die. There's a beginning and ending for everything. So for me, I didn't think of it as just like, oh, this just takes place here. I'm like, no, death is a construct that's universal. And when he broke down how he played out death, it was like he doesn't have that allegiance to anybody. Death's calling basically is, I'm here to pick you up, drop you off. And over the summertime, I gave him a book to read called On a Pale Horse by Pierce Anthony. And that one was another take on like death and different incarnations, but death in particular was like an office. So it's not just one person, and even death dies and somebody takes over that office.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked at it like that, and creating these characters, making them more like soldiers and components of that. So they're built because everybody doesn't die the same.
Right.
Like everybody's soul won't be the same. Because in my head, I had sideline stories where there's a situation where one of our Reapers goes to a world that you have to fight death in order to die. For you to have a traditional clean burial, leave that world clean, you have to fight death. And they can all see death.
Can you imagine being like 89, like old, withered, ready to die, and then it's like, no, you have to fight me now. Like, square up, like, let's go. No, that is awesome. And man, I can't being a 17-year-old on a date, and next thing you know, something's like trying to kill you and tearing up everything around you. That would be such a wild ride. But speaking of wild rides, we have the opportunity to check out issue 1 and just get a look at some of the interiors and an idea of what's going on. So let's go ahead and pull up the PDF for it. And then we are going to be letting you take the wheel. So go ahead and just scroll at your leisure, and we can kind of, wherever you want to stop and talk about, we can kind of just touch base upon that.
Okay, cool. So we have the cover for issue 1, which is the man himself, Devon Midnight, who is actually referenced, is my oldest son is the reference for the main character. So so we have issue 1 here. Here's the cover, and we get into the first few pages. Of course, we did a Kickstarter for the first one, so and then we have the creators and the people who helped us out with the first one. Myself, Will, Renato Pacheco, and Davidson Maines, who was our letterer. And as you can see here from the jump, so I'll tell you a cool story as we get into a few pages within the issue. So in page 1, you see here we're at the New York airport, right? And you're following a couple as they walk through. And Will, stop me at any moment, and Cody, you stop me at any moment if you have any questions about anything, right? So we're following the couple who's checking into an airline at the airport for their flight. We have some pretty cool dialogue there as they're laughing and joking with each other. They get their tickets. The second few pages, the couple are talking, and there's a bit of foreshadowing here that you will definitely remember these two characters here later on within the book.
Is the symbol important too? That's the Omega symbol, isn't it?
That's the Omega symbol.
Yeah.
So later on,
yeah.
Right. Oh, go ahead. Will, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so you caught that, but I purposely put that in there because it's the end.
I've been told I'm observant, so.
So they're in the airport. They're in their seats. They're having some dialogue about, what's going on, and you hear the conversation that they're having is a weird one for what you would think would be a normal human couple to be having. And as we get through the first few pages, right? And then we have this particular panel here where the stewardess asks them, to buckle their seatbelt, in which this character says, no need for that. You're all about to die shortly. And you see the look of surprise on the stewardess's face. And what he's pointing to is actually one of the engines on the plane has caught fire. So in these next few panels, you see the chaos that ensues, right? With the passengers, the stewardess, she's making an announcement via the plane, and here you can see she's trying to get everybody to stay in their seats. As the chaos starts to like I said, reach a fever pitch, so to say. And I'll say here in this panel specifically here, Keep an eye on this guy, the one that has the devils on his hat. So I'll just give you a little nugget there. He plays an important part in the remainder of the story.
I really love the paneling, William. Like this is you did a killer job. I love like the breaks with the paneling too, like how on the right hand side you have like the head breaking the panel and go bleeding onto the background of the page. Like this is remarkable work. You guys are definitely a powerhouse together.
Oh, thank you.
So I appreciate that. That came from our not editor, but editor, a friend of mine. Her name is Stacy Woods. So as I worked through the book, I would go through certain sequences and I would ask him, like, look, what do you think it is? She's like, no, I don't like that. Maybe if you do something like this, and the third, maybe that might come off better. And then I would go back and rework pages. So there are always other hands that also go into us creating this book too. So I want to send out a shout out to Stacy for being our editor when we don't have an editor.
And let's see. So as we're going,
this is gorgeous. Yeah, this is
page, right where this takes up a full 2 pages in the book. As you pull it out, that's the plane crash, right? The plane goes down. Everybody, you see the different interactions from the stewardess to one of the passengers on the plane and other passengers and the actual pilot himself. And then you see here, this is the couple that just entered the plane, and you see like this mystic energy flowing around their arms. And once again, all will be explained. But this is kind of, how we decided to start the book. And from the plane crash, it kind of shifts over, right? So meanwhile, somewhere in Atlanta, Georgia, you can see that there's an older woman who is holding a child. And she's speaking telepathically with someone who you don't know who this someone is initially, but they're going back and forth about the actual plane crash that is happening now. And that conversation is basically, did things go as planned? Yes, it did. The person that she's speaking with tells her that, he has to be away from some time, and thank you for watching over Devon. And she puts the child down and she exits the room, and then we go into the dream sequence that Will was speaking of earlier. So this is a young Devon Midnight.
Will, what was some of your influences for this? Because this is immersive. This is gorgeous, man.
So my primary influence when I go into trying to do the best comic panels possible is going to be Chris Bachalo. So like I immersed myself when working on this book. Was hand in hand for me always was at the time LaShawn Thomas's sketchbook. That was, like, I have his first sketchbook, so that helped me stay grounded. Chris Bachalo, I would pull out any works of his that I could find, to try and break down panel design in my brain and try and do it as, if not as good as he is, but and in the same vein as something that he would do. And of course, Joe Mad is always going to be high on my list of things for me to look at. So, but these panels in particular, especially ones where like they kind of bleed into everything, those come from me trying to be the best Chris Bachalo I could find.
That's awesome. I love it. And it shows your art is remarkable. It's so detailed and immersive. So I wanted to ask that question because it's like you said, the way you're able to design the pages to like lead the reader's eyes. Like it's just, man, I cannot stop like looking over all of these pages.
Good.
See, and that's the part that I love to hear about. Like, it's two things that I can say that I'm thoroughly appreciative of for this book. So when we finished the book, I got physical copies and I sold them to as many people as I knew. But also one person in particular, which is my boss at my job, who doesn't read comic books, is not a fiction fan, but she's like, you know what? I'll read it. But she's a fan of literature. So she read it and she's like, I really like this story. She's like, I don't do these things in general. I'm not saying it's just because you made the book, but she's like, the story really caught my attention. And then, of course, it's like, oh, you really put your work into it. And I'm like, I did. I put a lot of work into it. But the second book, I'm telling you,
we have Gold RPG in chat saying great color choice as well. Yeah, the colors are phenomenal too. So real quick, do you want to go through the whole book, or do you want to? We don't have to spoil the whole thing if you don't want to.
Well, we can go through. Well, let's go through a few key pages.
Yeah, absolutely. We could go through as much as you want to, but I wanted just to let you know we didn't have to spoil it if you didn't want to.
That's fine. So if we look back, actually, so if we go back a little bit, the first few pages, the airport scene. So after the airplane crash, the scene here with you have the dialogue with this entity and the older lady with the young Devon Midnight. You then go. The book takes you 14 years later, where you see Devon and he's in a graveyard and he's visiting his parents' graves. So initially, fun fact, the pages that you're looking at now were supposed to be how the book started. We literally got almost to the end of completing issue 1, where I had a talk with Will, and I'm like, it's something's missing, like something. I need to find a different way to open the book to kind of draw the readers in. So everything up until these pages was literally a last minute edit. I went back and rewrote the beginning of the script to kind of add that piece to it, and say, okay, this is something that's going to grab people, right? Not that this scene here wouldn't, but I just wanted to add a little something extra. So that's that's a fun fact about issue 1. So
that's crazy because it would have been crazy. It would have been 2 like totally different introductions.
It would have. Yep. And I apologize to Will all the time. I said I know I drove you crazy with that. But yeah, so, and then a few other key scenes. Like I said, he's a 17-year-old. He's riding around with his girlfriend. Just, they're on their way to the movies. They stop by, a coffee shop to get her something. They're talking about music. They're there, and then in the midst of that, you start to see Devon's interactions with certain people within within those scenes and those panels that you see how we was talking about how he tries to make things as immersive as he possibly can, that kind of go into the storyline. And here, so let's see, they go to the movies. Like I said, with the writing, you want to capture the little things too, right? It's not just the action, it's not just the fighting, it's not just the chaos, but the little things that him and his girlfriend would say to each other on a date, right? They're being playful with each other, they're hugging each other. She's telling him, thanks for buying me popcorn, stuff like that, right? And let's see, this is moving a little faster than I wanted to.
Ooh, so it gets gory.
Let's see. One of the next key scenes for me that I really love is here. Like these are 2 of my favorite pages. And if you get the book and you start reading the book, you would have seen them earlier. Let's go back. Seen them earlier in the book. So you'll see this guy that Devon had a brief interaction with, and how he kind of plays into what goes on later on within the comic book. And remember earlier on in the book, I told you keep an eye on the people who were passengers on that plane. Remember that hat. So, and then there's the movie theater scenes, right, where him and his date are sitting down, his girlfriend are sitting down, and then you see this guy here, right, who just comes out of nowhere in the middle of the movie. And it's not just Devon who gets attacked, it's any and everybody that's in his way. If he's here to cause utter chaos and complete the objective that he has been given, which is to assassinate Mr.
This is gorgeous.
Oh, thank you. This is all Will. And the cool thing about it is, so even when Will's putting these panels together, the way I write, it's not just scripting. Right, so I'll say, okay, well, this page, let's shoot for this many panels, and then I'll give him like a brief description of what I'm thinking the panel should look like. And as we've grown in how we communicate, what everything should look like. Like at first I was putting a whole lot of detail into the script to the panel, and then Will's like, okay, I got it. And so now I could put outside of the dialogue, I'll put very little, and he just takes it somewhere else that's just absolutely phenomenal and blows my mind every time. So yeah, you start to see the fight scene with Devon and this entity, but you also see where, like I said, you get a small glimpse of some of the power that he has, or he didn't know he has.
Mhm.
Here he has a specific marking on his left hand that you might think is a tattoo, but it's something else, and he's thought it was a birthmark all his life. So like I said, you get into the action scenes, and then you see, this entity is literally tearing the movie theater up. Devon and his girlfriend don't know what to do next, and then you see we introduce one of the Lady Reapers, who shows up to save the day. She makes sure Devon and his girlfriend are safe. She throws them off into another realm as she continues to fight with the main villain. And then issue 1 ends with Devon and his girlfriend Destiny. Natasha jumps in, who is the Lady Reaper. She throws them into another dimension. They're there wondering what's going on, and the very last panel of the page is as they're talking to each other, you'll see these 2 hands come out behind them to grab them and pull them somewhere. You don't know where. And this particular person has a small bit of dialogue as well, but this is where it ends. So you don't even really get to see the first part of the fight between Natasha and the main villain's name is Dood, D-O-O-D, which there's a reference behind that as well, which will be explained as we go on in the different issues. So yeah, it leaves you with a serious cliffhanger because you see this Lady Reaper, she's there to do some damage, right?
Mhm.
She's there to swoop in and basically get to it. And but like I said, and you're wondering, okay, where did she throw Devon and Destiny? Where are they? They're scared. They don't know where they're at. And then now they're getting pulled out of this realm by someone who they have no idea who it is. And that's where we pick up at issue 2. And then of course here the last page was the all of our Kickstarter backers for issue 1, which I'll give an additional shout out to. And thank you for supporting the Kickstarter and the back of the book there. So our pacing as well, as we don't want to, because of the fact that we want this to be an ongoing series, and we're going to have several different story arcs. So an arc in my mind, once again, I look at it as like an animated series or a live action series. Those seasons are normally 10, 11, 12 issues long, right? That's how we're writing the arcs for the book. And for each arc, we're going to dive into the background and the story behind a new Reaper and potentially a new villain. And once all is said and done, we then branch out from where Devon eventually ends up being, and then you also actually you'll get to see by the end of the first arc, you'll see a few visions of the head Grim Reaper himself. So yeah, it's we're pacing things well, or in a way that makes us excited. And like I said, it makes you want to see more, makes you want to read more, makes you want to go on to the next issue to figure out what the heck is going on. Right. So, and this is it. This is our first book. This is our first book, issue 1.
No, that is so cool. We have Gold RPG, solid gore effects, reminds me of old Spawn McFarlane.
Yeah.
So yeah, nothing but praise for Will's art, man. It was gorgeous. I love those scenes. Like this is, and I'm really excited too because I think I figured out a way to like what I'll do is when I get ready to edit this post production, I'll take that video and then I'll cut it and then I'll just stretch the video, and then so it'll be like the comic will be stretched out as large as possible. Is that like, dude, those scenes, those panels, holy crap. I kept like in my head like visualizing that, and you guys, like what I visualized like was nothing close to like just how like awesome it looked. Like that was just mayhem. Now we were talking backstage. You did a Kickstarter for issue 2, but that one didn't go so hot compared to the first one. What do you guys think? What do you think happened there?
So we did the Kickstarter for issue 1 right before COVID hit. So we didn't even get a chance to travel and do any cons. Mm-hmm. So it's literally been some time since then where we've just put all our focus into, marketing issue 1 and trying to get it out to the people in the bookstores. So when we, some time had passed. It had been almost 2 years before we did issue 2 or the Kickstarter for issue 2. Yeah. And we put it out there. Yep.
The timing.
Yeah.
The timing was I mean, it's the beginning of the summer when we put it out, so people already have money allotted for vacations, and a lot of people are not. Everything is starting to open up, so more people are not necessarily going to be like, "Oh, well, let me go check this out." I mean, there could be different reasons why. It's fun for us because I look at it like it still keeps us hungry to do what we have to do. Mm-hmm. So we don't go like, "Oh man, we didn't get the Kickstarter." It's more like, "Well, we didn't get the Kickstarter. We still keep it moving. We're still going to do what we have to do regardless." And that's the part that I think makes this book more successful for me than any other starting project that I've ever done. Like that probably would have crippled other teams that I worked on. We're like, "Oh, well, we didn't get that. So, maybe we might want to break up the band." Like, so.
Right. And, even though the second Kickstarter wasn't a successful one, it's fine because we don't base whether or not the book is going to come out on the Kickstarter itself. All of our issues are going to go one way or another, mm-hmm. right? Like I said, being a fan of the platform and being a supporter of all the creatives on that platform, especially in the comic book space, I love the experience of it. Right, I love backing a different tier or a different package. I love all the extras that come out with it. I love getting to see, more about the creators themselves. You hopefully you get a lot of that history in just looking at the project itself, seeing the pencils, the inks, and a lot of creators put those types of things on their Kickstarter, so you kind of get to see the behind the scenes stuff mm-hmm. that you wouldn't if you just picked the book up in the store, right? So we love the experience of it, and like I said, even though the issue 2 Kickstarter wasn't a successful one, it's fine because issue 2 is still scheduled to come out on Thanksgiving anyway. And like I said, we just like being a part of the purchasing experience in terms of that, and a part of the creative experience as well. And but it didn't stop anything because issue 2 was coming one way or another.
Yeah, that's so. How are people going to be able to purchase issue 2? Like, is that going to be available just solely on the website? Speaking of the website, here is the link to check that out as well, guys.
Yep, www.thereaperstouch.com. So issue 2 will be available on thereaperstouch.com. We did do a smaller crowdfunding on an additional platform called Crowdfunder, where it's we did get a few backers on there, so thank you for everybody who supported the crowdfunder. But issue 2 is going to launch on. Right now, we're scheduled for Halloween. As long as we,
Thanksgiving.
When you're independent, things can happen. And it's not like we're a huge shop where we can, kind of maneuver through certain things the way a bigger company would. But right now, we're slated to release issue 2 on Thanksgiving of this year, and then book 3 should be released on Valentine's Day of 2023.
Okay. Are you what's your guys' reasoning for picking like the holidays?
Well, the holidays. So so I just thought it would be cool to release something on Valentine's Day. There's no. I wish I could give you some super cool rhyme or reason.
Yeah. Hey, babe.
But we do have issue 4. As long as as long as things go well, we're looking at Halloween of 2023.
That's cool though.
So we're Halloween, of course, because it's around the Grim Reaper. It's around it has a supernatural theme to it. But outside of that, it's just hey, let's release one on Thanksgiving. Let's release one on Valentine's Day. Let's release one on Halloween of next year. Outside of Halloween, there's no real rhyme or reason. Just trying to figure out a cool day to do a release on.
It's like on Valentine's Day, like, hey babe, got you issue 3. Here you go.
There you go. That'll get you in the door.
No, that's so awesome. So you two are looking at trying to pitch this to some animation studios as well, right?
We are.
At some point, like probably when we get like 4 books in the can, that's something that we could do. The idea of trying to reach a wider range of people, and this is something that we talked amongst ourselves about, maybe trying to see if we could reach out to Image and see if we can join that platform and push our book through there. At least that opens up a wider base. But what I wanted to mention as a backtrack was, as far as physical copies, now that things are opening up, you'll probably also be able to purchase them. So if you go on the website, whenever we go to cons, whether we're together or separate, we should probably have issues that we'll be able to sell there. Like we just left Roanoke, Virginia from Big Lick like maybe 3 weeks ago.
About 4 weeks ago, yeah.
We're pretty much sold the inventory of books that we had there, which was awesome. So we had like a great time being out. We look forward to probably doing more cons. The season is wrapping up, but as the new year comes in, we'll probably get more prints or try and get as many prints because it's coming out of pocket. So we print what we can and then sell what we can and do it that way. So in the interim, please hit up the website because it's lots of merchandise, not just like these awesome shirts, but there's backpacks and caps and hoodies. So the weather's getting cold. You might want to get those Reapers clothes.
And Cody, Cody, we'll get you out some merch too, Cody, for you to wear on.
Let's go! I love it. I love it. So before we wrap things up completely, guys, what's next? Like, is it just the Reaper's Touch? Are you guys looking at any other projects or anything like on the horizon?
So we do have something on the horizon that we can't speak too much about now. So we're looking to partner with a big comic book publishing company for another project that we have coming down the pipeline. So if that goes as well as we hope it will, hopefully you'll see that on shelves and sometime around first quarter, maybe next second quarter of next year. But right now, we're laser focused on the Reaper's Touch and getting it to a point as to where we're getting the storyline out there. We love the fact that now that we're able to do cons. We have 2 more coming up by the end of the year, possibly a 3rd. So we'll be at the Louisville Con, and I think that one's in November 10th, and in Louisville, Kentucky. And we'll be at the Charleston Con in Charleston, South Carolina, and I think that one's in December. There are 1, maybe 2 more that we're still waiting to hear back on now because it's kind of tough to get into cons nowadays. Everybody's going, and then we'll update those. All the updates are on our website, thereeperstouch.com, and we also put, pictures from our cons up that, for all the cool people that we were able to meet. We just did the Big Lit Comic Con back on August 6th and 7th, I believe, in Roanoke, Virginia. So we went out there and had a blast. Like, we love, this is the piece that we missed out on because we did issue 1 right before COVID started, and they shut everything down. So yeah, we keep our schedules up to date, and then 2023 y'all are going to be sick of us. We're going to be everywhere.
Let's go.
The goal is to be everywhere. If I would add on to one other thing, just because I'm also the penciler, if you go to Mad Mace Artists at Work on Instagram, I'm always out for doing work for hire. So in between me working on a book, just be mindful of that if there's concepts or sketches for fan art and things like that, I always do those things. So those are things I do just to try and bring that around. Or you can find me at William Macy on Facebook. So like Twitter, I do, but I'm not active enough on Twitter to be like, oh, go to my Twitter account. But
it's so
definitely
crazy. It's so crazy. I was talking earlier and apologizing because I'm not active on Instagram. Like, I would say probably 155 of my interviews came just directly from Twitter. I was surprised that you guys somehow found me on Instagram and booked. It's wild to think of the different like spheres. Like, there's a huge indie community. Dan Price is one of my friends. He has a huge indie community on Twitter or Instagram, I mean. But like, I find everybody on Twitter, so it's crazy to see how you guys like really don't use it. And vice versa, like I really don't use Instagram, but it's clearly, networking for you guys as well.
Mm-hmm. And our Instagram is The Reaper's Touch 2020. So if you can follow us there on Instagram. And like I said, like you said, we were talking about that. It's funny because we're just now starting to get into the Twitter space. Mm-hmm. And we probably do need to start doing some things on Twitch. And but yeah, it's just funny where you reach your audience at, your audience, right? They are what they are. I know a lot of them are on multiple different platforms, but we do know that that's something that we're gonna increase our presence on and outside.
And one other thing I would like to say, so in our book, there's filled with a lot of Easter eggs. But they're like hip hop Easter eggs. So if you're anywhere in that space where you like backpack rap music or old 90s rap music and things like that, you'll see a couple of fallen rappers, a couple of rappers that'll just pop up, or certain things that are on the wall. So like you caught the Omega symbol. The book is littered with all kinds of different references, and we do that specifically to make sure you're aware. And even if you're not aware, like if you see us in cons and you're like, oh, I really like this panel, I could be like, oh, did you see this? And like, oh, I didn't know that was in there.
No, that is awesome. Yeah. No, I'm a big fan for Easter eggs. I always love when you can sneak things in there, and sometimes it goes unnoticed for so long, but when someone finds it, that is such an awesome feeling. Before we wrap things up completely, though, I want to ask you a question in particular, because as much as this is a podcast where we really focus on like your book and the creative process, it's a nice platform for anyone who's new, who might be listening and trying to learn, maybe take some advice here and there, some tips. So with that being said, for anyone that is starting for the first time or maybe just stuck and trying to get started, what type of advice would you offer them to help them just get motivated to go?
My biggest piece of advice would be to, the same advice that I got, right? Don't worry about what could go wrong, right? If you have a passion for it and you love to do it, just go, right? We didn't know that it was gonna take us, years to get the book done, but we just didn't stop. Mm-hmm. And eventually we got there, and now we're continuing to push. Number 2 would be surround yourself with good people, right? Like I said, me and Will didn't know each other from a can of paint when we started off, but we built that relationship and that trust, and now to where, like I said, we're brothers. So if you have good people around you who truly want to see you succeed and work with you to hit that goal, find those good people to work with. And 3, my thing would be, in terms of like when you start advertising, just immerse yourself in the culture of whatever it is you're doing, whether it's a comic book, whether it's a clothing company, or you're doing a video game, or whatever it may be. Me and Will, thankfully, were already immersed in this world, but we had to be more so from the creator standpoint. Mm-hmm. And then ask for advice from people. Like I said, Will's been doing this for a long time. He knows a lot. Somebody else I consider to be a brother, Greg Burnham. He's the co-creator of Tuskegee Airs. I reached out to him and I asked him questions all the time, right? And take that information and do what you can with it. So, just go. At the end of the day, it's really, if you have a passion for it, you love it, plan for it the best you can, because there are some things you're gonna have to figure out along the way. and just go. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there for for the world to see and critique and to love and to like and whatever it may be, and just understand that all comes with it.
And to piggyback on that, the main thing that I would say is it's okay for you to fail.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. The scariest thing for all of us is like, oh, this is not going to work, or this is not going to be accepted. That's completely fine. The one thing I like when we did go to the cons is I got to meet a whole bunch of fledgling artists, and they all had those questions like, well, what could I do? How could I get better? One, study, immerse yourself in your craft. Whoever it is that you like, look at what it is that you like about it. You don't have to mimic it, but do the best you can to honor what it is that you love. Two, it would be the fact that if it's sitting in a book, if it's sitting on your hard drive and nobody else sees it, then there's no purpose for it. Put it out there. It doesn't matter who sees it. They might like it today, they might like it tomorrow, but it doesn't matter. What you like is completely different than what anybody else will like. I post stuff all the time, things that I'll be like, that was terrible. They'll be like, everybody liked that one. I'll be like, oh, this is great. They'll be like, oh, that was terrible.
It's like, what do you people want?
But you can't be scared to do any of it. And like you said, whoever you're around, feed off of that. And if you're around somebody negative and they're just like, oh, this is never going to work for you, embrace them, because that's the person you want to step on while you're moving forward.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, guys. That was so much awesome, information packed in. I think someone is going to really be, they're going to benefit from that. I love it. I love just both takes on it too. Thank you both for coming on, breaking down the Reaper's Touch. Jaron, William, this has been an awesome talk. I can't wait to get you guys back on. We need to get you back on for issue 3. Are you going to be doing a campaign for that, or is it going to, what's your plans for that?
So right now we don't know if we're going to do a campaign for issue 3 just yet. Now that we're able to get out and hit the cons and everything, we will probably be doing a Kickstarter campaign for to shoot a live action pilot to pitch to networks next year. So look out for that as we move forward. But I don't know. We just may, and if we do it, we'll probably start the Kickstarter for issue 3 probably in January. We'll probably do a 30-day campaign if we do decide to do it.
Yeah, if you guys do, let me know. I'd love to get you back on and we can really deep dive the campaign and everything.
And hopefully maybe we might get a show out in Ohio. And if we can, then maybe you can stream something live with us there while we're out and about working. So
no, that'd be so
really
awesome.
Appreciate it, Cody. Thank you.
Yes, thank you guys. Everyone watching, have a fantastic Saturday, but most importantly, keep it geekly. Let me go ahead and end the recording.